How's it going? Welcome back. We're going to talk about this whole SSD killing the Macs and virtual memory and other known as swap. Anyway, so I just finished watching yet another video on this subject myself, and I'm still scratching my head and going, what the hell? What is going on here? Like, seriously. Anyway, so I'm watching this video, and I had to actually go 3/4 of the way through it to find out how much RAM the guy actually has in his computer. Because he's talking about, 8 gig or 16 gig, and he's still going into swap, and it's like, what the heck are you doing on your computer that you're doing that? Like, how many programs are you running? Like, I've launched 15 programs at once, and I've still only barely scratched my RAM. Mind you, they're just sitting there idle doing nothing, because when a program itself launches, our programs really don't use squat, okay? It's when we actually use the program, if you know what I mean, okay? So if we launch up a video editor, like iMovie or whatever, it's only going to use a certain amount of megabytes of RAM, right? But once we start throwing files in there to mess with, now we're starting to chew stuff up. When we're playing video games, we're chewing up RAM right away because, hey, it's a video game, right? Word processor chews up nothing. Start typing, it starts to chew a little bit, right? So that's when programs actually take over the larger amounts of RAM that they want to do things. However, what I noticed on his video was a few things. Number one, he's running Big Sur, so locations for finding out the data written to your drive will be different from Big Sur and Monterey. And both of my Mac M1s are running Monterey. Now, like him, I also have a 16 gig machine. I have an 8 gig machine. My newest, of course, is the MacBook Air base model with 8 pathetic gigs of RAM. My mini M1 has 16 gigs. Now, in this monitor area, what we're looking at is where it's highlighted as kernel task. That tells you the total amount of stuff that's been written to the drive, which in my case has been 185.8 megs. Whoopee, that's like nothing. And this is my daily driver machine. I'm surfing the internet. I've got 4 or 5 tabs open all the time. I do iMovie with this for my video editing. I've got Logic Pro for music or GarageBand. I've got some actually not bad little video games that I play from time to time. I do a lot of compression of my videos after they're done to make them small enough that I can upload them without killing my bandwidth for the month. Now, I've also been doing similar tasks on my MacBook Air as well, which we will get to that one because I'm screenshot recording these so you can see the same thing you're seeing on other people's channels. But what's different about me is I'm running the latest OS of Monterey, okay, like the newest. From what I'm seeing from a lot of the other videos that I've been watching, everybody's using Big Sur. But what concerned me about this guy's computer that I just finished watching was he's got 8 gigs of RAM in this machine he's doing the video with, and he's only using up 6.43 gigabytes of actual RAM, and he's already into swap for, I think it was just over a gig of RAM, right, for hard drive space to use for swap. That's impossible, okay? It really honestly is. You can't go into virtual memory or swap memory until you've used up all of your internal memory. It's otherwise not possible. So this is definitely a very huge problem with Big Sur. Now, you'll remember when the M1s were first released, they came with Big Sur, right? And now they come with Monterey. So when I bought my mini, I custom ordered it because I had to get the configuration I've got, and so it came with Monterey. When I bought my MacBook Air at Best Buy a couple of weeks ago, it came with Monterey. Now, my Mini has also since been reloaded since I got it because I wanted to do a fresh reload, and I got that done, right? This way, I know what's in there, right? I haven't touched my Air at all. I just set it up for what I need it for. It's an emergency redundant backup system for emergency only because 8 gigs of RAM is not much. Okay, I've got about 130 some gigs of hard drive space left, or SSD, but I do video editing on it. I've been kind of swapping between the computers for editing jobs, And so I've been using the M1 Air for video editing. I've been surfing on it every day, especially when I'm sitting at the lazy boy, you know, watching TV, because that's another reason why I got this thing, other than to prove a point to people. But there is no way you should be seeing your machine going into swap if you are not using up the RAM, because clearly if you go under the memory tab, down below here, it shows physical memory, memory used, which in his case was just over 6 gigs. So I don't know what else he had going on at the time of the video, but I mean, I've just got my OS up and the activity monitor, okay? And I'm only using 4.36. So we don't care about the cached file area, it's not important. Swap used 0, okay? So on his, he's got 8 gigs of physical, 6.43 in use, and he had well over a gig of swap being used at the same time. That is literally impossible to happen. Okay, now I've been running computers my whole life. As you guys know, I've been a certified tech for over 30 years for Apple, as well as a certified PC tech for over 28. And I can tell you for a fact, it's impossible for a computer to start using swap until you run out of regular RAM. Now, that's under the conditions that everything is fine with your OS, okay? Obviously, there are some big issues with Big Sur. Now, I have not had the experience of running Big Sur with either one of my M1s because they can't. Because when they came with Monterey, you can't go backwards, okay? Believe me, I even tried to do the standard old school reload. It doesn't work anymore. You have now a special reload process to reload your Mac, which is actually quite simple, but you can't do an offline install anymore, which kind of really bites. Kind of cheeses me off because I'd rather do it offline, which is why I crabbed at Apple myself a few weeks ago, you know, and said, look, why are you even giving us an installer for Monterey on our computers when we get them, when we can't even use the bloody installer? Doesn't make sense, you know? And they had no answer for me. They were just as dumbfounded. So it's kind of like, well, I don't know. Anyways, but as you can see, I'm not going into swap. Monterey is a really good solid OS. It works fine. It manages memory obviously properly. It's not going into swap and killing your drive. Now, the systems we've been hearing about too are likely ones running Big Sur. And if Big Sur is actually putting your systems into running swap right away, that will destroy your hard drives within a year or two because you're always running swap, right? And that really heats up the drives, and heat blows drives. But the thing is the constant reading and writing to stabilize that amount of RAM, whether it's being used or not, it's there. It's being written and read and written to consistently with swap. This is going to be hard on your drives. So my advice, ditch friggin' Big Sur and go on to Monterey, and I'm sure you'll have a much better experience because obviously I have no issues. Now, we're going to cut off of this computer. We're going to slide over to the M1 Air because I've only had this computer for a couple of weeks now, but I wanted to point the things out. So, look at bytes written as 187.9 meg. And remember, this is my daily driver, this Mini, okay? It is being tortured all day long, several hours a day. I mean, sometimes it doesn't even get turned off to 2 and 3 in the morning. Other times it doesn't get turned off at all because I'm uploading stuff overnight. Okay, so yeah, and that's all I've used of total bytes written to my drive. Okay, all right, let's go over to the other one. Now we are on the M1 Air. Now I'm going to flip over to the memory side and look down below here where the mouse cursor is moving. Physical memory 8 gigs. I'm using 4.29 gigs. Now all I'm running is just the activity monitor. Okay. And this is a freshly booted OS. It's been sitting here idle for the last, half an hour. But you'll notice under swap used, nothing. It's not using anything. Again, I'm running Monterey here. Now, if we go under the disk area for the kernel task, we can see that we've only written 193.1 megs to the disk. That's nothing. Okay. So Is there a problem with Big Sur? I think there probably is a Big Sur. Is Big Sur reporting false numbers? Probably not, because it is actually going into swap. And you've been stuck in swap and probably not even realize it since you fired that sucker up. So, I mean, your drive could last you a year, could last you 2, could last you 3 or 4 years with being in swap. But from what we're seeing, we're actually seeing that people are having SSDs go within the first year or two. Now, keep in mind, these M1s did not come out until the end of 2020. This is 2022. So we've had all of 2021, and we're just into the beginning stages of 2022. So this hasn't even been 2 years that these things have been on the market for. So I don't get where people are saying, within the first year or two. Well, you know what? It hasn't even been 2 friggin' years yet. So I don't know what you're talking about. It's been like, maybe about 14, 15 months, somewhere around there, maybe 16 tops. Either way, a lot of people started with Big Sur because that's where it all began, with M1s. And now I've used Big Sur on Intel machines, and I've never gone into swap there either. So obviously Big Sur is probably best suited for an Intel Mac, okay? But it definitely is not suitable for the M1s, because if M1s are running Big Sur and people are having hard drives calf, then that means Big Sur's got an issue. And obviously from that gentleman's video where he's showing he's running a Mac with 8 gigs of RAM, he's got nothing else that appears to be running other than his activity monitor. I don't know what he's running in the background otherwise. But he's using 6.64 gigs from what I could make out on the screen. And he's into the swap already for over a gig. That's not possible, like I said. Not until you run out of physical memory do you ever go into virtual or swap memory, okay? And that's traditionally been the same forever, whether it's been on a Mac or a Windows computer. A Windows computer will not even go anywhere near the swap, okay? Now, swap is automatically turned on by default. We have no way of shutting it down conventionally. On the Mac, on the PCs, yes. But the PC is going to bark at you unless you have enough physical RAM. Then it'll say, okay, you can shut it off. It's safe to do so. Otherwise, it'll say, not advisable to do this, because you could run out of memory. One of the other stories I heard lately, too, was somebody was running their Mac. And I don't know how many applications they had going, but the computer came up and barked and said, you're out of memory. And it's like, the only way that happens is if he found a way to shut it off, which apparently there is a way you can go into the OS programming and shut off virtual or swap space. So, but if you have virtual turned on or swap, then no, your computer is never going to bark at you and say, you're out of memory, unless you're actually out of physical hard drive space. Well, okay, then it's going to say you're out of memory, right? And this just reinforces so much more why I tell you guys that 8 gigs is a joke, 256 is a joke. Don't do it. Just order your computer custom from Apple with 16 gigs of RAM and whatever size of hard drive you want in there, up to a 2 terabyte on these things anyways. And you'll be fine, for like years down the road. I've been running SSDs for years and years. I've never, ever had an SSD go down. I've never run my systems where I'm even thinking about going into virtual, okay? So, and virtual has never been turned on even on my Intel Macs by default. You know what I mean? Like even with Big Sur, and I've run Big Sur on a few different Intel Macs. I've never once ever seen Big Sur turn on swap. So this has got to be an isolated thing with M1s that is doing it to, because I see no other way that it could happen. It's got to be a problem with the OS. But Monterey, certainly, we're fine. We have no issues whatsoever with swap being turned on to be used because, hey, obviously, swap used, nothing, okay? Our kernel, we're getting a report of this is how much data we've gotten written on this one. We've already seen the other one. They're very close to each other, even though my Mini is older technically than my MacBook Air as far as how long I've had them for and been using them. And I do way more stuff on my Mini daily than I ever think about doing on the Air. The Air is always turned on, but the Air is used for the odd video editing that I've been doing with it, because I've been putting it through its paces. I play the motorbike game the odd time that's down in the corner over here, the odd time when I'm sitting on the Lazy Boy, and I'm surfing the net, okay? Like I said, this computer was bought strictly for proving a point, emergency backup system, and surfing the internet on the Lazy Boy, maybe playing the odd game, okay, when I'm watching a show, because I actually can multitask. However, I wanted to do my video tidbit on this one because I'm seeing a lot of stuff that just isn't making sense over across many videos on YouTube where this is a concerning issue with SSDs. And I have told you before, what will burn out an SSD rather quickly is swap, and it will. You know, it will damage the SSDs. Now, how long it takes will depend upon the SSDs, but you know, that's the thing. We're running with internals. We don't know the total story of all the spec lines on the internal SSD that's on that chip with everything else on these things, because Apple doesn't release everything to us to the nitty-gritty. Probably because most people are not as technically inclined as others, and it's the majority of the people that are not technically inclined and wouldn't really understand that jargon anyhow, so why would Apple release that information that way? And that makes sense. And it's not that it's people are being treated lesser. It's just that they definitely wouldn't understand the technical jargon, right? You know, and that's an okay thing, you know. I mean, there's things in life I don't understand, you know, and I'm okay with it because I really don't want to understand certain things in life. I got enough to deal with every day, right? Anyway, so that's what we've got for you on this one. Now, if you want to avoid any more problems, I would highly stress and recommend reformat your drive and install Monterey. But before you do, go to your activity monitor, and even if you have to do a bunch of screenshots of different areas in your activity monitor, and then you can compare against Big Sur to Monterey and how the numbers are being reported. And I'm sure you're going to find you're going to have a lot better experience with Monterey. And your likelihood of burning your SSD out is going to be actually a lot less, providing you take a little bit of advice right now. Number one, try not to run more than one program at a time, okay? Especially video programs, make sure that's the only program running, unless you like having dropped frames or glitches. Your audio, same thing. If you're going to do audio stuff with a recording DAW, make sure that's the only program running. Surfing the internet, go ahead, surf the internet, have your emails up on a few tabs, and you know, go play a video game, because you're going to get your alerts through the video game anyways. It's going to go ding, ding. Trust me, my phone and my computer blows up all day long on me. So it's annoying when you're playing a video game and you hear ka-ding, ding, ding, ding. It's like, ah, you know, it's like I want to shut this off now. So now I just shut all this stuff down so I don't get bugged. I want to play a video game in peace. Thank you. Anyways, but try and just run one program at a time. You know, there's no need to run multiple programs. You know, I mean, the more stuff you run, you start confusing the CPU going, oh, which one's going to take priority now? You know, and it can actually cause problems with the other programs of tasks you're trying to do. So one at a time, more than sufficient. You're not going to run out of RAM too easily. Now, the other thing too is stop buying base level computers, because 8 gigs is not enough for anything really. I mean, light duty video editing, yes. Okay, you can do light duty video editing all day long on an 8 gig machine. You will never hit swap. You start doing mid to high level video editing, yeah, you're going into swap. You want to keep your hard drive healthy and alive? Buy a machine with 16 gigs of RAM, okay? If you're going to buy into these entry level M1s. If you are a professional user, well then why are you even buying an entry level M1, okay? Other than the fact that you had to originally before the new ones came out. So maybe time to upgrade, okay? I'm eventually going to get into one of the pro level machines. I'm looking at either the 14 or the 16. I still really have an issue with the 16 with the trackpad, but the 14, no issues for me. And besides, I can max it out pretty tight, you know. But it depends on how much money I have at the time, because I would really like to spend somewhere around 4,000 or 5,000 for, you know, total price with upgrades on the 14-inch. Then I think that would be my best overall setup for doing that with. But we shall have to see, but it ain't going to happen anytime soon. In the meantime, I'm quite content with what I have. I just kind of want one of those other machines because, hey, come on, 4K XDR display alone is worth doing it. You know what I mean? But anyways, hopefully this helped you guys out. So, reformat, stick in Monterey. Don't forget to take screenshots first to compare numbers, see what happens. Because your written data that you have currently, theoretically, that you're seeing now on Big Sur, should pop up the same the first time you launch the activity monitor after a reload on Monterey after it's all updated. So make sure you update Monterey, okay, update your programs, get everything back in your computer, okay, and then restart the computer clean, fire up activity monitor, let her sit there for about 5 minutes so everything can sync up, and then check your kernel task under disk, because Monterey you have to click on disk, where on Big Sur you don't. So that's it, that's all. Enjoy, and we will catch you guys on the next one. See ya.